All right, let's make a video of the work that was completed. So you've got this list on your email. You can look at it, but I'll just go down the list. So 30 items, I believe, done. First item was dipstick hole grommet. That's that grommet right there. It keeps the air, cooling air from escaping. Vacuum balance tube. That's this tube going up and around to both sides. It was necessary to replace that because the one you had on it did not have a place to get the vacuum signal for the new vacuum advance right there that we put on. So we needed to put a stock Corvair one on there. PCV, positive crankcase vent hasp, a little hasp right there. Its main function in this case is to plug up the hole there so cooling air doesn't come out. We put on the vacuum advance. Petronix 1 was put in there. She got electronic ignition. And then a new rotor, a new distributor cap, ignition wires. So you got new 7mm ignition wires, and you have the correct AC Delco 44F spark plugs in there. So that's kind of the tune-up. We discussed in an earlier video the folded fin oil cooler, which is the best of the 4 types that Corvair makes or Chevy made. In there are some new O-rings that seal it. Number 12, oil cooler stainless bolt washer. So I got a stainless, the fastener is that right there. I just got a nice stainless steel one to make it look good. I did the aluminized paint on the oil cooler just to dress it up a bit because it's very visible in this car. Cleaned up the engine shroud. I cleaned up the entire car, but I cleaned up the engine shroud because I had a lot of the stuff off, so it was a good time to steel wool it and clean it off. Number 15, valve cover gaskets. So I put the cork gaskets. Number 16, remove leaking aftermarket oil system cooler. So that was all, that whole space back in there was oil cooler extra filters and all that anyway. It's still sitting on the ground there, leaking all over the place. I'll put that, clean it up, put it in a bag for you. Maybe you can sell it or something, or throw it away. Let's see. Oil pan gasket, so that was down there, and I put a cork gasket on there, a new cork gasket. I set the valves, I did compression, and the compression numbers there, pretty good, 150, 180, 150, 160, 180, and 140. Those are very good numbers. Put the crankshaft sleeve, or the ready sleeve on the crankshaft to make it a little bigger. We talked about that earlier, to make it leak less, or not leak at all. Then we put a new crankshaft seal. Here's the old one, kind of hardened and probably worn to some extent, and we put that new Taiwan, made in Taiwan one there. And then the bell housing gasket, you can't see that, but it was a new paper or felt gasket between the bell housing and the case, something you got to put on when you put that seal on because you disturb it. I put the VR1 Valvoline engine oil. This took 7 quarts because that's 6 or 7, I think it was 7 quarts because the larger oil cooler down there takes a quart or 2. So you got new oil in there, and we use the VR1 because of the ZDDP, the zinc and phosphorus that they put in it to slow down the wear of the camshaft lobes. We got a new Wix oil filter, you see. Exhaust tube gaskets, left side. So I was able to put them on the left side, but not the right side because the handmade header was a little different. So I just used the old ones, but at least we got them on the left side, new gaskets. And then we talked about in the other video the front left and right face sheet metal. That's that sheet metal there on that side, and the other than that. That's where you're losing between 40 and 60% of the total air that should have been pushed through the engine was just shooting right out the front of the engine. So that's the biggest cooling improvement made on the car. That's where most of your cooling was being lost. And then 28 harmonic balancer seal. So that's that seal right there. It was in a previous video. It goes on the other side of that harmonic balancer. Talked about that. I set the timing. It's a good point. All those parts came out to $579. It was 44 hours of labor. My labor rate usually is $75. That'd be $3,300, but I told you it'd be 33% discount, so it's $50 an hour. So that's $2,200. So total is $27.79, which I know is higher than you wanted to go. But again, we didn't know all the things we're gonna find on it, and we found a lot, and it's pretty sound now. Now, what could be done in addition is it runs, but it runs on the power that's in the battery. Your alternator, which actually your alternator is right there, the chrome one, I took it off to try to see if I had one that would work, and put the chrome one back on. But I needed a new rebuilt alternator. California Corvair sells them for about 170, so the whole thing's about 250 to put that on with labor. Definitely could, if you're going to go to sell it, and maybe even if you don't sell it, all this wiring could be cleaned up, kind of a rat's nest in there, and made pretty much invisible, tucked up underneath the lip of the fiberglass there. And then we could also relocate. I would recommend taking that coil back that's sitting back there, kind of just flopping around, and relocating it to here with a nice chromed bracket there. So that's kind of the stock way to do it, and it looks good too. And it would completely clean up that back area, especially if you use a internally regulated alternator. We can get rid of that regulator, and that whole back area could just be a nice clean space back there. So that was the project.